Today, we will be discussing both the old and new of Yokohama City. The isolationist policy of the Japanese samurai government was challenged by the United States of America in the mid-19th century. Resultant from this, the fishing town of Yokohama was transformed into an important port town where international trade was conducted. Even now, Yokohama retains its international image and sense of historical importance. To start off with, we will talk about Koganecho. Situated alongside the Orca River in the South Ward, Koganecho is a convenient district, close to many of the main attractions of Yokohama. Further to this, the cherry blossom trees lining the banks of the river make it a scenic neighborhood to live in. However, the past of Koganecho has not been so bright. In fact, until only recently, Koganecho was synonymous with danger and vice. The reason for this was a booming prostitution ring which dominated the area for decades following the end of World War II. At the height of its operation, Koganecho was home to over 250 small brothels, many measuring less than 2 meters wide. These small brothels were occupied by individual females who would accept clients in 15-minute slots for a sum of around 10,000 yen. The majority of these prostitutes were sourced from developing Asian countries, such as China, Thailand, the Philippines, and Indonesia. Now, however, these stores have found a new lease of life. With the 150th anniversary of Yokohama's port overhaul to be celebrated in 2009, a 2005 police crackdown was initiated in Koganecho to eliminate all remnants of vice. From there, the city council set about to transform the city into a vibrant, attractive art scene, something which almost 10 years later is bearing signs of success. Along the riverside now, instead of brothels, one can see many quaint cafes and restaurants.
Lots of small shops.
There is hope again for this area.
Now, let's move on to the different and brighter side of Yokohama, Yokohama silk. The port of Yokohama, since previous decades, has played an important role in Japan's economic growth. Yokohama is a prominent port city that helps Japan end its isolation from the world in the middle 19th century, and nowadays it has become one of the major ports along with Osaka, Nagoya, Hakata, Tokyo, Chiba, and its biggest competitor Kobe. In accordance to the opening of the port in June 2, 1859, Yokohama quickly became the base of foreign trade in Japan, which enabled it to import and export goods from outside. Speaking of Japan and especially Yokohama's trade with foreign countries, we cannot forget to mention about Yokohama silk, which was one of the main contributors to the city overall development. In order to know more about Yokohama silk trade, we've paid a visit to Yokohama Silk Museum near Yamashita Koen. This museum was originally opened in 1959 to commemorate the 100th anniversary of the opening of the port of Yokohama, and was made possible through the cooperation of Kanagawa Prefecture, City of Yokohama, and various commercial interests related to silk production. This museum features a comprehensive series of exhibits on silkworm ecology, cocoons, reeling, filature, degamming, dyeing, and other scientific and technical aspects, as well as the history of various silk-related crafts and occupations. Silk was first discovered in China 5,000 years ago. It made its way westward to Europe, to Japan about 2,000 years ago, and it continues to enrich our lives today. Even in this modern age of advanced science and technology, silk is still known as the queen of fabrics. The Silk Roads to Yokohama. With the opening of the port of Yokohama in 1859, export of silk to Europe and America began, and their volume increased steadily. At the time, the Kanto, Koshin, and Tohoku regions were the primary sericulture centers in Japan, and most of the raw silk for export were produced in these regions and sent to Yokohama. Until railroads were opened, the silk roads leading to these regions played an important role in the transmission to Western culture to the interior of the country. When the port of Yokohama was first opened, the community was still a sleepy farming and fishing village. It quickly developed, however, and has long has been one of Japan's representative international ports. In these transmissions, raw silk and silk cloth exports played a key role. Until the early Showa years, late 1920s, raw silk had an extremely high share of the total volume of exports through the port, and a large number of dealers, wholesalers, and exporters settled themselves in the city to form the nation's top silk market. The handkerchiefs industry was also established in Yokohama from early Meiji, subsequently developing into the scarf industry. When the pre-Meiji Tokugawa government opened the port of Yokohama, silk became a highly important export from Japan. Reeling, which had been traditionally conducted by individual sericulture farm families, became concentrated in filature factories from the Meiji period. Such filature factories came to be quite large in scale, and mechanized reeling took over the hand-operated zaguri. The Meiji government brought in advisory technicians from France, and the first government-operated filature factory in Japan was opened at Tomioka City in Gunma Prefecture in 1872, featuring mechanized reeling. No one can deny the importance of silk in Japan history. It was the main contributor in Japanese trades through Yokohama port, and even though it's not as popular as few decades ago, Yokohama scarf still had its place and popularity in the world.